Welcome back to another case study and Q&A with yours truly and my good friend Paco Farias, where we break down questions sent in from you and case studies sent in from you. And today is going to be no different with an amazing case study that was sent in by actually a good friend of mine. I won't say good friend of mine. He's a good acquaintance of mine. His name's Carlos, and he owns a coffee shop. So this is going to be a good little break from talking about tech and construction and software and all this kind of AI and all this kind of fun stuff. So we get to help local businesses, local small businesses as well. So we get really excited when we get to do that. But let's get into the case study. All right. So my name is Carlos. As I said, I opened a local coffee shop that has been a community staple for almost 5 years. Even opened a second location a year ago. Recently, a national coffee chain rhymes with Harlux. Assuming Starbucks kind of rhymes. Starbucks opened a location 2 blocks away. They have been very difficult to compete with. Obviously, infinite marketing, more resources, and have lower prices. Yeah. Our main thing has been locally sourced ingredients and higher quality. So our prices, they do reflect this. So they're not going to be as cheap. I understand that. But we've noticed a decline in foot traffic and sales big time lately. How can we compete with this? You want to start this one off?
Yeah. It's just fascinating how the rise of the national chains, all of these large players that are trying to get as local as possible, can get quite complicated for individuals that are trying to get back to the root of what small businesses are, which is, community. You get to know the individuals that live there. And one of the things that I've observed with several individuals I've talked to that have relatively similar situations is just asking yourself, getting back to several steps here, and it's just asking yourself, okay, what are my differentiators here? One of them, from what I read there, is the quality, the source, many other things that they say, right? It's kind of, they have certain things that are differentiator, locally sourced ingredients, higher quality. What is interesting, though, is you have to ask yourself, and we've talked to you all multiple times in terms of the biases that we have towards our own product, our natural biases. So, one of the most dangerous things that we can have is thinking, oh my God, my product is so good that it's going to sell itself. How many times have you heard that? I've heard it many times. What is fascinating is a lot of times it just doesn't work because you are speaking to yourself. You are your own echo chamber. And again, we go back to the Johari window, which is what, people know what they know, but there's a lot of people that they just don't know that they don't know. So what are some of those techniques that you're going to use to allow and move those customers from, they don't know what they don't know. They just go to a local coffee shop and they're just seeing something that is more expensive. They're like, it's just coffee. Well, one of the things that you could start thinking about is, are you selling coffee? Are you selling an experience? Are you selling, what is the emotional sell that you're doing? How are you connecting with the type of customer that you have? Because all of these things, there's a lot of emotional selling that can also happen because you can tell them, you can connect to the point of saying we're helping out the local producers and all those things. Some people care. I'll be honest, brutally honest with you. Some people actually don't care. So you also have to be very smart and also very mindful when you talk to yourself and that the average customer is just brutal. They are just going to go in average. If quality is almost the same and value is almost the same, they're just going to go with the lower price. That's just how it is. So what are some of those 2 or 3 things that you're really anchoring yourself that can really make a difference besides what you think on your own mind that is your difference? Just an initial thought. What do you think?
Yeah, well, you see this a lot when you have a business like this where they transition very quickly. Again, we talk about like market environments where they transition very quickly from, it sounds like being a monopoly to almost competing with a commodity at that point, right? You have a Starbucks that comes in, it's at a certain price. You can kind of expect the quality that's going to be there. It's shipped in from Seattle. You don't care, but you go because it's quick. It's Starbucks. It's maybe a little bit cheaper, though Starbucks is kind of expensive, but it's still a little bit cheaper than maybe you are. And you learn, you kind of had this false, to your point, you had this false sense of security, this false sense of what made you successful, when what really made you successful was lack of choices.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I mean, that was it. Maybe you had a good location. Maybe there's one other coffee shop and you're only competing with them, so you're only comparing to them. So then that's your only anchor point that you have.
Mm-hmm.
So you have this false sense of, okay, what is my strategic advantage? What is my competitive advantage at this point? And you could say, oh, it's because it's locally sourced, because it's tastes so good. But tastes so good compared to what? And like you said, does the your audience, does your foot traffic, does your customer really care that it's locally sourced? Yeah, I mean, I can attest to that. I walk through and I'm like, I see something's locally sourced. I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's it. That's all I think. I'm like, oh, that's great, good for them, right? It's probably high quality, and you think high quality and that kind of stuff. But if I'm just talking about coffee, I just need to pick me up. That's not really my thing. So now you have to identify who you're new. Now you have a completely new ICP, have a completely new customer profile, like ideal customer profile that you need to cater to, as opposed to you're no longer catering to the people that just want a quick pick me up, that just want to get their coffee before work in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
that come and get a quick lunch, they just want something quick. You're no longer catering to those. So your ICP really got cut in half. That's not to say you can't get those people on certain occasions, but again, if you're competing against something like a Starbucks, in the like, okay, I need to get my coffee quickly in the morning, and I just need to be awake for the first half of my day, you're not going to win that battle. But what battle can you win? You can win the battle with community engagement.
Mm-hmm.
You can win the battle with getting involved in certain events. You can get involved. You'll get more feedback as far as like asking the community, what do you want? How can I serve you better? Right. And that's the other thing too, is that you, as a small business, have the ability to pivot, where a franchise, they can to a certain extent, but I mean, be realistic. There's 300 levels of bureaucracy before they can change the colors that they put on their door, really, right? So you have this competitive advantage to pivot, to change. You can take advantage of the community events and do like specials, create different products, right? You could literally copy Starbucks in some cases, unless you signed a non-compete. You could copy and just make their stuff better,
Mm-hmm.
right? And again, they probably, I'm sure they don't worry about local, like Starbucks isn't worried about local coffee shops. They're not going to make you sign some sort of non-compete, right? And it sounds like they haven't. So you have the ability to pivot. You're flexible. You're malleable. Use that to your advantage. Again, we talked, or I guess I can't say that because we just recorded this one separately. We talked previously about different market environments. You can put yourself in that. They're living in a classic market environment where change takes a long time. They stick with what's worked for a long time. They use predictable forecast models, all this kind of stuff. You can now live in your own little world, this adaptive market environment where you're constantly changing, you're constantly trying new things, new ingredients, new recipes, right? And playing off of the holidays, playing off of community events and that kind of stuff. So use that to your advantage. Like that is truly going to be a big competitive advantage for you, is your ability to pivot and do what you want.
That reminds me, and I do categorize coffee as part of one of those that is more like an emotional buy. Yes, of course,
Mm-hmm.
it's a need, and when it's a need, you don't compete there. But when there's time, it becomes more and more of an emotional buy. My wife and I, every 2 or 3 weeks, we go to a coffee shop that it's not close to our home, but we just love the fact that coffee shop, 50% of the money they make, they give it to a very specific charity that you can trace.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not telling this person to go and, they created their business model and it works, and probably that reflects in their price and they still get money. But the point here is that one is absolutely 100% of an emotional buy. Mm. By the way, the coffee and the food is great and the ambience is great. But it's our biggest anchor is the emotional buy. Again, I'm not telling you just go through that, but particularly as you start to understand a little bit of your different personas of your customer, you can get very, very surprised of why people can make some of those decisions.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Yeah. So to summarize, use your find what that new competitive advantage is, which a lot of it is your ability to pivot, your ability to listen to your customers, listen to the community, and make changes. Make changes, but don't make changes just for the sake of making changes. Make changes based off of feedback. Make changes based off of trying something, seeing if it works, making those small bets, right? Seeing which one worked, whichever one worked. Okay, let's invest and dump our resources into this one. But that's your biggest advantage. Listen to the community. Feel good? Beautiful. Yep. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us for another case study, and we'll see you in the next one.